and resume recording. All right, so welcome to our PLCamp session today. I'm so excited that you're here. So I'm going to share my sound and optimize for a video clip just in case we do start our video clip in just a little bit. So we're here today to talk about our student-led conferences. We're going to talk a little bit about the why, a little bit about the how, and we're going to have a bit of a work session. So our session today runs from 9:30 until 10:15. So if everybody could open the slides, I would just like to know what your experience is with student-led conferences. So whether you've done them before, whether you're intrigued, whether you haven't done any conferences before. So if this is your first year, or if you are accidentally in the wrong session, that's okay too. So go ahead and move one of these little bubbles to the spot that most applies to you. So if you could go ahead and move a little dot in the consensogram, that would be helpful.
I'm sorry, for me it says it's view only.
Yes, so sorry, my fault. Thank you. And now everybody should be an editor if you refresh the page. Thank you so much. Apologize for that. So if you click refresh. So if you click refresh right up here, you should be able to move things. My apologies. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you for the update, Lisa. I appreciate it. All right. So I see some people have done student-led conferences before, so I'm excited to tap into your knowledge as well. All right. And just a couple more seconds if anybody else wants to share their experiences using the consensogram. All right. Okay. So, all right. So welcome everybody. This is our agenda. So we have just done a little bit of our welcome, and we are going to do our framing now. We're going to talk about our why. We are also going to go into the how. We're going to do a little bit of our work session, and then we're going to have our evaluation. So there are two parts to the PLCamp, and so this is the first session, and then there will be a second session where you can choose to go for that second part. And then by the end of our session today, you will have discussed why student-led conferences are beneficial. We will also discuss how to conduct a student-led conference and also collaborate to create courses. So we are actually going to watch a conference in action. So I'm going to click on the video, and if you cannot hear, please let me know.
Lavia, ashe, ashe. Funwa lavia, ashe, ashe. Funwa lavia, ashe. My name is Trinity. I'm in kindergarten, and my school is called Delaware Ridge Elementary School. We welcome you with our words. We welcome you with our hearts.
First thing that our students do is they greet their parents or whoever is there to listen to their learning.
And we say you like a high five, handshake, or a hug.
I'll do a high five.
The second thing we do is our welcome song.
To get kindergartners ready for their student-led conference,
Here are two of my reading strategies.
there you go. We just take it a little bit by little. Students will share their learning targets before they talk about each page that they are sharing.
I can demonstrate how to use picture clues when reading. It's a dragonfly
How do you know that's a dragonfly?
because a dragonfly has these things, I can stretch outwards to hear all the sounds. Egg, g, egg, g, egg. To do a student conference, you can be in first grade, second grade, or third grade, or fourth grade, or fifth grade, or you can be in kindergarten. I can find the sum of two numbers. We put it dots to make it equal the 7. Since I taught you, may you do one. Whatever kind of grade you're in.
I use any two numbers?
10 plus 10. You have to practice and learn how to do your conferences before you do it, and your teacher can help you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
We practice for our conferences in our classrooms. We do a fishbowl. I show the students what it would look like and what it will sound like. And then a student will do a fishbowl, and student will share their learning and do their portfolio for the class.
20. That do it right? Okay, okay, cool. Thank you.
Final draft of a monarch. These are the things to make the monarch. Focused eyes, symmetry. One side is like the other side. And the wings, the body parts, antennas, and legs. What I like about it is the colors because it looks beautiful. And to fix this, I needed to show symmetry because I think this wing is smaller than that one.
The last thing they will talk about is their science. So we've done scientific drawings and their learning and how they got to that final draft. They are in insect expert groups.
My insect expert group is Ladybug.
And they will share their scientific drawings and their learning so far.
Head, thorax, and abdomen. This is kind of squiggly, but we're gonna do another one. The state has 3 types of ladybugs. They are red and orange and yellow.
So that was our first draft, right? So what would you like to work on for your next draft?
Do finger spaces.
Okay, that's a great goal.
You will practice and practice to get really better. Thank you for coming to my summer conference. Do you have any questions? And then you can tell about what do you do to get better and better, and you can tell them all about it.
All right, so sorry about that. It got a little stuck. All right, so as you can see, kids as young as kindergarten or even younger could potentially do a student conference. One thing I did want to point out was that it doesn't have to be the students' most high quality work, but it could be an assortment of their work. And it really should show the students' growth over time. So it could potentially be something that they started with at the beginning of the year, and then it could show where they are now. And so it could be something from maybe the first week of school, and then something that they've completed most recently, maybe in November, closer to conference time. And so it really shows their growth over time. And it could show something that they really are working towards. So you notice that the little girl in the video, Trinity, it showed that she wanted to work on finger spacing. And so one of the things that you do are that you would maybe consider highlighting are things like their goals, especially if they're self-selected. And maybe as the teacher, you would want to kind of guide them towards the goals that they might consider choosing, because obviously you are the adult and they are the student, but that's something that you definitely kind of want to guide them towards. So I'm obviously not the only person in the space who has done student-led conferences. So please, please, please speak up if you have any other ideas. So down here in the bottom, it says, what other ideas do you have? And so I really do mean that. If you have any other ideas that you would like to share, please share them. So student-led conferences are beneficial. And so there are a variety of reasons why. So obviously you saw that a kindergartner can lead a conference, a student-led conference. And so it's a great opportunity for students to have that leadership and to reflect and to have that ownership over their work and to kind of have that responsibility. And so I heard her little voice at the end say, "Thank you for coming to my conference." And so to me, that was very sweet that she was just able to articulate how proud she was of her coming to her parents coming to her conference and being able to kind of share everything she's done so far in the year and her growth and her ability to kind of show what she's done so far, and kind of do everything within the conference, even with a little bit of support from her teacher. But I feel like that was really great that a kindergartner was able to lead her own conference. It also communicates our high expectations of our kids in that they're able to lead their own conference. And when we give them that ability and we're not just talking about them, especially if they just show up to conferences. So that's kind of how I stumbled upon this topic, is that when I was a third grade teacher, some of my kids would just show up to their conferences. And so instead of just having them go sit in the book corner in the library, I would have them come and they would share their work. And so I stumbled upon it by accident. I would just have my kids share their work and say, "All right, this is something that you did and I was going to share it with your family, but why don't you share it? Instead of me talking about it, you're here, why don't you share it?" And so obviously it promotes oration and presentation skills because they're talking about their work. They're able to articulate and share what they're doing. And it's not just the teacher talking. It's great for goal setting because students are able to set those goals themselves. And if they need a little help, you're obviously there to help them. So it also promotes honesty and trust because you're building that home and school relationship. And you're showing that what's done at home is also what's being talked about at school, and what's happening at school is being talked about at home. And the one who's doing the work is doing the learning. And so I can't remember how many times I was sitting at home kind of filling out those sheets by myself for goal setting and what I was going to say to the families preparing for conferences, when really that's something that students could be doing. Students should be setting their goals, and students should really be the ones working on filling out what they're going to be sharing at conferences, because they're the ones who are learning. Obviously, you're the ones doing their grades and you're the one doing all of those things, but they can be the ones filling things out for conferences because they could be leading the conference themselves. Is there anything anybody would want to add or share or highlight? I'll check the chat really fast. No? Okay, no worries. All right. So for families, it could encourage families to attend conferences because it's a chance for them to see their child. So a lot of times, in my experience as an educator, I've seen a lot of families come out to when their child is on stage. And so when you see that, oh, okay, perfect. When families come out, I will hopefully be able to get rid of those black boxes. Thank you. When families come out to big performances, typically they're coming to see their child. And so when that happens, you can encourage, thank you. You can encourage your families to come out when they know that their child will be presenting something. And so if they know that their child will be presenting at conferences, they might be more likely to attend. Also, if they know that their child is going to be sharing and their child is welcome at the conference, it might help alleviate the need for childcare. If your child is bilingual or multilingual, it might also help alleviate the need for translators or language line or something like that, because that way, even if you use the language line or if you request a translator, the child might also be able to speak to their family in their native language, which would also help build that language, which is great. Any other ideas that people might want to share? All right. So somebody did type a note in the chat saying that there were little black boxes that were showing up, and it was the video panel and the screen sharing panel along the bottom. So I apologize for that. I was trying to minimize those. So sorry about that. All right, so on to how to conduct a student-led conference. And this is where, again, please jump in if you have some other tips or tricks or ideas. So at least a week before, please plan to share your student-led conferences with the families and the students, because they need to know if they're going to be helping you as far as students, and that families will want to know that you're planning to conduct student-led conferences. And then also I would highly recommend choosing a template or creating a template. Typically they involve goal setting, and then help the students choose the work that they're going to be sharing at conferences. So if you already have something like a data notebook or a portfolio or something like that, or if you keep a really organized Google Drive with your kids, then that may be a really good place to start for kids to choose work from. So that would be a really good way to kind of choose work, to have a portfolio of work to choose from. So also you can model how to lead and share work from a student-led conference. So you heard the little girl, Trinity, from the video say, I had to practice a lot. And I don't think she was wrong, because leading a student-led conference is probably pretty new to your kids. So I would highly recommend having them practice. Are there any other ideas about what to do at least a week before? All right, that was all the wait time I can do online. So moving on to the next one. All right, so the day of, I would recommend thinking about the space that you have during conferences and making sure that you have a spot for the student to be able to lead. Obviously, a round table would be best, so that there isn't really like a head of the conference, and so that the student can kind of feel like they're leading it, but also you're there to support, and then the family feels welcome as well. So I would highly recommend saving a few minutes at the end to ensure that the family still has time to ask you questions as well, because they also came there to see you, most likely, because they could ask their child questions at home, but you are also there to kind of help support the student, and also to be there to ask or to answer the questions that the family has. I have spoken to a couple of other teachers in my school who have had student-led conferences and have supported their students in student-led conferences, and they just felt so incredibly proud of their students after leading their own conferences. And when I did it myself, I felt so incredibly proud of my kids. So you would obviously feel really proud of your kids, and be proud of yourself for guiding your students. So anything else anybody would like to add? All right. And then after conferences, so your kids did all the work, so make sure you're sending home that planning sheet. Oh, yes. So somebody pointed out in the chat that students enjoy sharing. So make sure you give them that time to share. So build in that time. And that's one of the benefits of student-led conferences as well. So thank you for sharing, Lisa. So after conferences, make sure you send home the planning sheet and a copy of all of their work, because they already did the work. So why not share it? Also ask families if they're able to reschedule on Zoom or over the phone, because it can still be a student-led conference that way. And if not, that's okay too. You can still send home that work. Anything else? All right. Any other expertise or ideas that you want to add? And what questions do you have? I will close this. Anybody?
I have a question, Lisa.
Yes.
What if you have some academic concerns or learning skill concerns that, of course, you would make those somewhat clear in a developmentally appropriate way for the students, but that you felt like you really need to share with the parents?
Absolutely. I would maybe guide the student to kind of choose work that kind of highlights what you're seeing. Also, conferences most likely aren't going to be the first time that you're highlighting your concern. So a lot of schools have the CPS process, the collaborative problem solving process. So I would guess that conferences wouldn't be the first and only time that you're meeting, or that you're checking in with the family. So I would recommend maybe reaching out before conferences, especially if you're doing student-led conferences, just to touch base and just say, hey, we've been working on this. This is what I'm seeing, and just kind of touching base there. And then student-led conferences might be a really good way for the student to kind of highlight their goals and to have it come from the student, and for the family to kind of see it from the student's point of view. Does that kind of Do you think that that is reasonable, or do you think that that might work?
Absolutely. And I
Okay.
think, if you've made contact a little while before the conference, then the student hopefully is reporting on some success in that area.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. But even if they're not, so hopefully they've made at least a little bit of growth, but even if they're not, I think that that would be very telling to kind of have the family see like, oh, this is still something I'm working on. Even if it's a very goal-oriented conference, I think that that's still very telling, and that's very helpful for the family to see. And so I think that it can be very true to what the student is doing. And you can just say, and maybe you can bring back some work from the previous grade and just say, I don't know if it's possible for you to meet with the previous grade's teacher. Like my current school is a 3rd through 5th grade. So if it was a 3rd grader, it might be kind of challenging to get some 2nd grade work, but maybe you could kind of check back and see if there's anything in the student's previous grade that you could say, hey, this is what we're comparing it to. This is where they were in the previous grade. This is where how they've grown since last year. We're still looking for a little bit more growth. These are their goals. Like, this is what they say their goal is. Does that make sense?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you keep little binders for your students through the year and expect them to do the student-led conferences? Or is it just for the students who show up on conference day and they're ready? But like, what's the expectation for the students? Is it all, or is it just some? Is it?
So I'm currently a staff development teacher, so I can only tell you about what I've done in the past. So in the past, the expectation at my schools were to have a data notebook. And so we were constantly collecting portfolio items. So if it was something that was going in the portfolio, I would make a copy to send home, or I would keep make a copy for the data notebook. So it would kind of depend. So it was something that my team agreed that we were going to keep in our data notebook. And so it was something, or the student I considered was very important, or the student and I agreed would go in the data notebook. And so it would be kept in as a portfolio piece, if that makes sense. And then from there, we would look through and say, hey, we want to sticky note this, we're going to keep this or we're going to highlight this for the student conference. And so we would just have we would have a meeting, like we would sit down together as student and teacher and then go through and say, hey, what pieces are we going to do for our student-led conference? Fill out like a goal sheet and then say, okay, let's practice and have a little minute to sit down and go over our conference practice. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so all students then did the student-led conference?
Yes, all students did the student-led conference once I switched to student-led conferences, but the first time I did it, it was by accident.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay, I see Lisa has her hand raised. Was that Lisa or?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry. Yes, Lisa.
I have a question because I have done student-led conferences in the past, and something that I've run into is that if a parent doesn't come or family member does not come, what do you suggest to do with those students that have already practiced with you and unfortunately for whatever reason they're unable to come?
So you kind of have two options. One, if you get, so since this is, so you could do two things. One, you could get the digital consent form signed and have if the family's okay with it, they could maybe do a recording of their conference and just have them record it so that it can be sent home to their family, either on just their Chromebook video app, or you can have them do it on Canvas, or you can have them do it on Loom, or you can have them do it on a variety of different sites where they can do recordings. Or you can have them do it perhaps with the school counselor or one of your teammates, or with the principal or the assistant principal or somebody else they might have a relationship with in the school if their family isn't able to come. Or you can ask if the family is able to Zoom or Google Meet or do a telephone conference. Are those options you think might be feasible? Okay. You said yes in the chat, so I'm thinking those might be reasonable options. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Okay. So we are moving on to the next part with no other questions for now. Okay, so it is creation and collaboration time. There are some ideas here. I am going to adjust the time a little bit because I see that it is a little bit late. So we're going to come back at 10:10. So if you would like, you can look through these. If you want to come back and share what you made, you are welcome to. If you don't want to share, that's okay too. But there are links down here. I know that 2 of these are the same link, which is totally fine. I just wanted to let you know where they came from. This other one is a Google slide. I just took a screenshot of one of the slides. So I am going to pause I'm going to stop sharing. I'm also going to pause our recording.